So, welcome everyone to another episode of the Daily Medieval Podcast, and here we have another one of our interview episodes, and I'm joined with the most amazing and fascinating person to date, which is someone who is a best-selling author, has a magazine, has all these different projects under their belt, prizes, all sorts of things you could ever imagine. And is just a very down-to-earth and just wonderful person. So I'd love to welcome to the podcast, Deb Hunter.
Hey, Luke, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Wonderful to have you here. So I guess let's just jump right in to kind of go back to the beginning. Where did your pursuit of history begin? Specifically, Tudor history, am I right?
That is my fascination, one of them, yes. And thanks very much for having me today. I have to mind my manners, and thank you for that. But my love of history goes a long way back. Our farm in Tennessee used to be the Cherokee Nation until 1838. So I grew up finding arrowheads and spearheads, and there's a cave nearby. So, you know, there was a lot of Cherokee information still around, and there still is. And then our farm is literally one of the spots the Union forces went into Chattanooga, Tennessee. So not only was there Cherokee stuff in our yard and on our farm, but there was Civil War stuff. So I kind of grew up knowing that history was a thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then just a little bit of a story, kind of a funny thing. When I was in what we call the 7th grade, which means we're 12 years old, I was as tall as I am now, and I'm 5'11". So my teacher, for whatever reason, my history teacher, when I'm leaving class one day, hands me a book and says, "Read this. She was as tall as you are." and it was a book about Mary Queen of Scots. Now, why she would give a 12-year-old a book about a queen that was beheaded, who knows? But it set about a lifelong fascination with the Tudors and Tudor history and the 16th century. So there you have it.
That's amazing. So I always find that fascinating about so many people have a very particular figure that helps inspire them to where they are now. And just quickly, I mean, it's so fascinating as well with what you say about all the Cherokee stuff. I mean, how important do you think kind of cultural heritage and having a look at these and using these kind of artifacts to help teach kind of and educate about history, expose people to history?
Well, they're very useful, but I have to say, anything we find on the farm, we leave. It never leaves the farm.
Really?
And my entire family, yes, my entire family has that agreement because it doesn't really belong to us.
Yeah.
It's what they left behind. So out of respect for them, it stays where it is. So, but I can't understand the importance of children seeing those. So I know some people leave collections and things, and there's museums. So it is very beneficial in learning things like that. Like, you probably didn't know this part of Tennessee was the Cherokee Nation less than 200 years ago. So
it's amazing stuff. So
it really is.
It
was considered a sovereign nation and recognized by the British.
Wow, that's amazing. So we have kind of your early roots, and then so now we have All Things Tudor. So what was your decision to create the magazine? How did that come about?
Well, again, there's always a story. I am Southern.
I love it. It's all good.
You're always going to get a story. The magazine came about simply because I am a stage 4 cancer patient, and it's very difficult to take time to write a book. And I have to say, there are publishers that have reached out to me and invited me to write, and I'm very thankful for that, but I can't commit to anything right now. So I started a magazine because I thought that was a great way for me to write essays and keep current, keep my skills sharpened, and also give new people, new students like yourself, a chance to get published early on. And also, for instance, my history editor is a graduate of Cambridge, even though he's American, and he's retired, but he likes to contribute. There's this real microcosm of Tudor history lovers from this stage to this stage, and it's just a wonderful way to bring everyone together and make things available in a new kind of way.
No, definitely. I think that's so inspiring because I mean, I've spoken to so many people who find a lot of toxic experiences with academia and some of the ways in which it can be, where you have more established people kind of being a bit more protective over letting new people come in. So it's absolutely brilliant to see the opposite of that happening, really.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm not an academic. I do have a BA in history, but I went into corporate America. So I never pursued my degrees. And now I wish I would have at least have got my PhD and then have gone into it. But
such is life. Such is life. Well, it's definitely worked out because so you founded the magazine in 2019, if I'm right. And since then, you've built up a magnificent brand in just, what's that, about 3 years? You've gathered 35,000 members across the world. So,
yes.
That's just absolutely incredible. How did you grow it? How did you undertake such a vast project and build up such a strong brand, do you think?
It started, like you say, in 2019. Thank you for knowing that. After a cancer surgery, I couldn't do anything. So my husband and my best friend said, why don't you start a group about this thing you talk about all the time, which was history. And there were 40 people. And I just thought that was great. 40 people, friends and family. And, we talked about on this day and different things like that. And next thing I know, we had 2,000 people. And I thought that was the biggest group I could ever even imagine. And then we had 10,000 people and then 20,000. And, you have to think that was only 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And now I'm very thankful. It's the largest Tudor group on Facebook.
Wow.
So, what I decided early on was to let people have fun with history, not to, I don't allow fights. I kind of run it like a Tennessee bar, one strike and you're out. So if you can't read the rules, if you can't read the rules and behave yourself, you're gone. So, and I think that's one reason it's grown, because you don't see a lot of fights like you do in a lot of groups, and nothing against other groups. That's, there's some great groups out there, but that's just how I run mine. And we have everything from scholars to novices to people that have just watched Becoming Elizabeth and want to know more. And everyone's very understanding of where they are in the learning curve.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Do you find it difficult with such a big audience to be able to, not so much please everyone, but be able to provide information for both scholars, but also general audiences? Because in a way, you can't please everyone.
Exactly. And you can't. And the members are absolutely great. I have to tell you, there are some incredible people that are very curious, and they share their travels, they share what they've learned. So it's not just me every day. I have to tell you something funny though. The other day I did post something, and someone, not knowing I was leader of the group, said, some people just want attention. And I thought that was kind of funny. So a little bit embarrassed for them. So I didn't really say anything, but I thought that was hilarious. But so when there's that many people, you do kind of get lost in the crowd.
No, definitely. But at the same time, I mean, when you have stuff like that, I mean, it seems like you've taken it very much so in your stride. But if you do come across negative reviews or criticism, how do you cope with that? Because with such a vast audience, that can be something that's very difficult.
Don't really read reviews.
Mm,
My husband and my editor do, and
yeah.
that way, it's if there are critiques that can be used,
Mm,
we use them.
okay. Yeah.
But I feel like everyone is entitled to their own opinion,
Mm,
whether I like it or not, and just kind of let it go with that, because not everyone is going to love you.
yeah.
It's that simple. So, and again, people have their own opinion about things. So
Mm.
that's just the way it is.
No, definitely. So I want to move on. So away from the magazine and now towards more of your authorship, because you have written kind of a vast number of books and you are a best-selling writer. And I find it fascinating that, am I right that you published under, I guess, a pen name, a pseudonym, for a long time, Hunter S. Jones? Can you just tell me a bit about why you decided to use a pen name, and then what made you do that?
When I started out, I had no idea I was going to become as popular as I did.
Mm,
And still, in the 21st century, men sell more books than women. And I thought, well, I'll do this for 1 year and I'll
yeah.
use a guy's name, and then I can just erase everything. And it didn't work that way. So, but what I've done after I was diagnosed in 2018, of course,
Mm,
it was over a year before I could even take time to write again, because I
mm,
had so many surgeries and things. But I found from not being as active on social media, a lot of people had forgotten about Miss Jones, as I
yeah.
used to call her. Um, and because of the group, I started becoming known as myself. So I started writing as me, and I've pretty much retired her. Her books are still out there,
Mm,
but I think my bio says that I published as Hunter Jones.
mm. No, that's fascinating. So now, so your writing itself typically combines history with, I guess you could say the erotic. What drew you to this genre? Because I know that many people obviously regard the scandalous nature of the Tudors as being, full of kind of eroticism and behind the scenes. So, what made you focus on this to write about?
I don't know. I guess because because I like it, and it seems like people are always interested in it, and it really doesn't get a lot of coverage, does it?
Mm,
People are interested in the courtiers and in the wives and what they wore and what they ate, but we don't really know what went on behind closed doors that much, do we?
mm. No, definitely. I mean, so when you're writing, um, do you feel a responsibility to, stick as much as you can to the facts, or do you feel safe to be able to kind of not so much bend the truth, but kind of fill in the gaps how you imagine it to be?
If it's fiction, I
Mm,
make it up. If
yeah.
it's history, I know one of my bestsellers I wrote on sex in the American Civil War,
Mm,
and there's a lot of comical things that
yeah.
people
Yeah.
wrote. For instance, one general wrote that a Union general wrote to another general saying the women of Nashville are going to, how did he put it? The women of Nashville are going to defeat the Union troops or something
Mm,
like that, because um, anyway, you can imagine. So,
yeah.
there's a lot of comical things that are there for us that are
Yeah.
documented. And if you present them in the light of their times and we look at them now, it gives it a whole different veneer.
Mm. No, definitely, definitely. And so when you're because you've written a vast number of books, and of course, like I say, you are a bestseller. Did you know because you hear about people when they make TV shows, be it Game of Thrones or whatever, you hear them, they're like, oh yes, we knew it was a hit from the beginning. I mean, did you know that kind of when writing it in the early days, or even forming the idea that, oh, this actually could be something pretty awesome?
Thank you for asking that. And I have to say no. In early 2020, a publisher approached me. Of course, that was the year of the pandemic, the main year, and wanted to put together a book. And of course, with what I was going through, it was a little difficult. But instead of starting from scratch, I had started a history book and I had started a fiction book. So what I did was work with my editors to combine them and do a time travel book. But we were hoping it would hit the USA bestseller list, but there's really no guarantee.
Yeah.
But fortunately it did. But I have to say it was great fun writing. So if fun has anything to do with the way readers will take a book, then yes, I did have a premonition, but I never thought it would do as well as it did, because it debuted at number 59 on the USA Today bestsellers list.
Wow, that's amazing. It's interesting you say there, obviously, about the fun aspect. Do you find, I mean, is there a key to writing such a popular and widely received book? Is there a certain aspect that you think that readers find that's well received by readers, is what I'm trying to say?
Thank you for asking that. And I do have the USA Today stuff documented, by the way. So if you ever need to see it, I have it. I think the best part is making your characters human. You discover what they're going to do. Sometimes they do things that you're not expecting to write. And I really love that part of it, making them real.
Do you draw from your own life or from people that you know, and kind of maybe to make them human, a certain quirk or something that someone has, that you'll pinch that in?
Well, my husband's not in the room, so I'll say this. In my bestseller, my hero of the novel is this tall, good-looking Dutch guy, and and I did base him on a guy I met once at a business convention. I just met him. No connotations there, but he was so stunningly beautiful that I thought, well, I'll just make him the hero in my book and make him a rock star, because that's the way it should be. So there's a lot of fiction, so I can't say it's necessarily about people I know, but people I've seen that have left an impression on me would be better phrased. And sometimes I know people do use people they know, but I just have a very vivid imagination, so there's no loss there to making things up.
That's brilliant. I mean, so do you have a particular writing process? Do you kind of lock yourself away in a room and then write 10,000 words, or are you just able to just go at it?
I am one of those. I do the binge writing, like you're saying. I don't sit down. I know when I interviewed Alison Weir, she's very regimented. She said she writes 1,500 words a day. She researches and writes, and I admire that very much, because I am one of those people that will lock myself in a room and say, just don't bother me until I finish this, because I'll have it. I'll know what I'm going to do. But I do outline it so I know where I'm going. You don't always stay on that path, but at least I have an outline. But I'm a binge writer, definitely.
I've heard from writers as well about kind of the main thing is to kind of just get it out there, even if it's maybe not too good. I mean, have you ever found yourself, I mean, I guess writing pages and pages and then going, actually, you know what? No. And then just scrapping it all and kind of starting again?
I don't waste any words. So if I do scrap something, I will copy, paste it, and save it in another doc and label it as unused, because you never know when you may need those words for something else. But I have a great copy editor who has been known in one of my diatribes, like you were just talking about, to simply put, highlight everything and say, what does this mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's always going to be things like that. And like you say, that first draft is really just what's coming out of your head. So you have to shape it and mold it and make it the best it can possibly be.
Yeah.
But getting it on paper, on computer, whatever, is the most important part of the process. And then after that, you can fine tune it.
Yeah, no, definitely. So you write this book, it becomes a bestseller. Do you find then you have a bit of pressure when you have such a success to be able to replicate it and to be able to try and do it again and again and again afterwards?
Actually, for me, I did it, so I have no need to do it again. And that's why I started the magazine, because I wanted a new challenge.
Yeah.
So I'm more that type of personality than let's do this, let's keep doing this. It's like, okay, I did that. Let's do something new now.
Yeah. So I guess, is that also then the same way in which then you've also started your podcast as well? That kind of a new project to kind of sink your teeth into kind of thing.
Exactly. And thank you for asking that, Luke. Last year, when we were coming out of COVID and still kind of in lockdown, I met so many great historians that were willing to talk on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
And I was really amazed. I reached out to legends like Leanda Delisle, and she's just one example. Went on Clubhouse with me. We had a great talk, had a nice audience. Same with Matthew Lewis and Nathan Amin, had a great chat. I got to talk to people like Dan Snow and Charles Spencer, and I was really amazed at the enthusiasm people had for listening to what they had to say. So I thought, well, let's try this podcast thing and just see how it works. So instead of Clubhouse, that way people can go back and listen to it, because at that point you couldn't tape Clubhouse talks.
Right. Okay.
So I started my podcast earlier this year, and I have to tell you, I have been so thankful for how it's been received. It's really gone over very well.
Is there a particular episode or person that you've kind of interviewed that really stands out as being like, oh, this was so worth it?
Of course there is, but I love all of them. So I love everyone that has taken the time to make it happen, because they're taking time out of their day.
Yeah. No, exactly. So I mean, you've got then the magazine, you've got the podcast as well. Is there, what's the future of All Things Tudor look like then? Have you got kind of another thing that you'd maybe want to try your hand at as well?
One thing I've been doing, and it's kind of come out of the podcast, is I have been working to make my Facebook group a community.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Where people learn, people share, like a thriving little community. So right now I'm working with the Met in New York City. They're doing a huge Tudor exhibit that starts October 10th. And I'm part of their press group. And we're offering, well, I got to post it on my blog a few days ago. So it was one of the first blasts to go out. So that means the people in my group got to learn about it first, so they could start planning if they could go see it. But we're talking about some articles have possibly never even left England before.
Wow.
So there things are on loan from around the world, from the V&A, from the Rijksmuseum, um, from the Crown. It's just going to be an amazing exhibit, but we're also working with some other entities that give our members discounts if they want to become members of these groups or do this or do this. So I'm really working to make it more of a community where they get something of value.
Yeah. No, that's
just being a member.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, that's extraordinary, and that's something, I mean, that you'd always kind of hope for when you make kind of content like this. I mean, something that I've personally wanted to do as well is with the YouTube channel, be able to have potentially like days allocated to other creators as well, kind of like what you say about giving back, in the same way that you let new writers kind of write articles for the magazine, have kind of a YouTube channel like what you see with, for instance, History Hit, where, you know, Tuesdays is with this person, Wednesdays you can expect something from this person, and be able to build that bustling community as well. I think it's really something special to be able to get the chance to do that.
Well, history has such a bad rap because it's just known as a bunch of dates and names. But when you realize that these were actual people and they wore clothes, they ate food, they were people, and how we can preserve that part of history and share it with each other, it makes it more meaningful. And I have been very fortunate. I've been able to travel a lot. I've been able to see things that other people can only imagine seeing. And I want to give other people those opportunities, whether they can do it virtually, or if I can connect them to someone that can make it happen for them, or let them know, well, today Hardwick Hall is going to be free for the members of our group. If you're there, you can gain free entry, just things like that. You know, it just like you say, I can give back based on my own experiences.
Yeah, no, definitely. And again, it's something, I mean, I especially get it with medieval history, where whenever I say to someone, oh, I do medieval history, I can see them glass-eyed and switching off. So it's definitely the ability to be able to bring some light, because I will always attest that medieval history is extremely vibrant and it's not boring at all. But the way it's taught in schools and everything, it's so tragic in a way, because they teach it so blandly, really.
I'm always amazed when I go to the UK how you do have so much history.
And yeah, definitely.
I mean, just thousands of years of it.
Yeah, no, it is an extraordinary place, and especially where I am in Norwich as well. I mean, it's got the highest density of medieval churches. It's a bustling medieval city, and it's amazing to also have kind of a history around you as well, in the buildings and the places you go, which I guess you may not necessarily get in other countries as well. Yeah,
that's true. Especially over here, we don't.
Yeah. So, but in any case, so what advice would you be able to give to someone wanting to become a best-selling author like yourself?
You have to just get started. You know, just write. The thing I would say is don't quit your day job. And the second thing is just write. Just, you know, even if you get rejected, just keep putting things out there. You don't have to have a publisher anymore. You can do things independently, but having a good content editor and a good copy editor, those are two things that a lot of people don't see a need for, but they are well worth the money, because if everything's about the presentation, so make everything nice, so the readers enjoy your work.
Well, I'll be sure to take that on board, because I'm about to start writing a book as well, so I'll be sure to keep that in mind as well.
Well, you'll need 3 editors. You'll also need a history editor to make sure you have that correct as well. So that's another thing about history, that it makes it a little more difficult to write than fiction. Fiction, we can just kind of make it up.
Yeah.
You know, but history, you've got to have the documentation, and it's got to be correct. So you'll be able to do it.
We'll see. I mean, I said to the publisher that I would start it in September this month, and it keeps coming over in my mind, and I'm like, oh, okay, I maybe have signed up for something a bit more than I can chew.
Well, I will tell you one thing: you don't have to write a book the way it's read.
Yeah.
So if you want to write chapter 4 first, you can do that. That's some great advice someone gave me, because I was kind of at a block one day, and they were like,
yeah,
if you have in your mind how you're going to end it, go ahead and write the ending. And that way your brain will say, okay, I've done that. And they taught me not to just sit down and try to write it from the beginning to the end, just to write it when I wanted to write it. And that has helped a lot.
No, definitely.
And it takes a lot of pressure off too, because there's always going to be something that you like better than other parts. So that way you can write your favorites and then go, phew, I've just got that one chapter that I really don't care about. Now all I have to do is knock that out.
Definitely. Well, thank you ever so much for answering all those questions and just being such a wonderful person. It's been brilliant. Thank you ever so much for coming on.
Well, thank you, Luke. And I wish you all good things for your podcast.
Thank you very much. Hopefully I'm able to make it somewhat close to what you have built.
Oh, how sweet you are. Thank you very much. Well, I hope this time next year we're both extremely successful and your book's a hit, and
fingers crossed,
we can have another podcast and you can tell me how you became successful.
Oh, I'll look forward to that. But in the meantime, is there any kind of projects, social media, whatever it may be, that you'd like to draw people towards who are watching, that can kind of know a bit more about you and listen to what you've got to say?
You can find podcast, Facebook group, magazine, Twitter, Instagram. Everything is All Things Tudor. It's a franchise. So just follow me there. My personal handle is the Deb ATL for Atlanta. And you'll find me on Facebook with a blue check. I don't have a check for some reason on Instagram or Twitter, but we'll see what happens. That ridiculous check. Who knows how that But yeah, I do follow back when I see someone's followed me. I don't get notifications, so I miss a lot of things. But if someone follows me and I don't follow back, just drop me a message and say, Deb, I just followed you, and I will follow you back.
Wonderful. Well, there we go. Well, thank you, anyone watching. I do hope you enjoyed it. Like I say, you've got all those links that you can go to, but if not, then also look at the description where I'll put all the links in. And in the meantime, also look at some previous episodes that I've recorded, and some of our other interviews from amazing authors to archaeologists and scuba divers. There's everything. Thank you ever so much, and there we go.